don't know. They talk to me, hopefully. This will happen. I walk a lot because walking keeps the brain moving, I think, keeps the blood moving to the brain. And I always carry a notebook, and sometimes a line of dialogue will just, oh, that's what he's going to say next. Oh, I didn't know that. Or at 2 a.m. I'll wake up and a scene will be right there that I was sweating over. I couldn't get it the day before. And there it'll be, and I'll madly write it down. And hopefully in the morning I can read my handwriting. And hopefully it's as brilliant as I thought it was, which it isn't. I don't know about if I talk to them. I mean, obviously something. What is the imagination? I don't analyze that too much. I never analyze where the light bulb idea comes from because I'm scared it'll stop. Yeah, there's my light bulb. Let's go, but let's not analyze where it came from. Somewhere, if you believe in the unconscious, I don't know, or the conscious mind, whatever.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, the author podcast, where you get to meet great authors from around the world. I love when I get to have an author on the show from my fair country, where we can focus on some great Canadian voices as authors and storytellers. And I'm excited to have Jill here on the podcast. We're going to chat about her journey and learn a little bit more about her books. And as an author listening, you're going to learn from a fellow author and get some inspiration to write your own story. I'm sure Jill's got some great suggestions for you on your journey of becoming an author as well. Jill, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. So glad to have you here on the podcast.
Thank you, Dave.
Excellent. Great. Jill, tell everybody where you are. Where do you live?
I live in Bedford, Nova Scotia, just outside Halifax. And if I walk to the grocery store, I can see the sea. Makes me happy.
I got to go to Nova Scotia for a week when I was working at Sobeys, the grocery chain. And they sent me out there for a week to do some training and things. And in the evenings, I had a rental car and I just went for a drive. And it was great. Yeah. I drove all over, and from a guy from Ontario to go put his feet in the ocean. It was like the coolest thing ever. So I love where you live. Yeah. It's just a gorgeous place.
Well, we're never further than 40 miles from the sea. Anywhere you live in Nova Scotia or Cape Breton.
It's beautiful. Pretty nice people there too. So there you go. And you're one of them, Jill. It's so great to have you on the show.
There you go.
For our authors that are listening, Jill, what I like to do at the beginning of our conversation is talk to the authors that are listening. The people that are here listening as authors, some of them are just starting out. They're like baby new authors and writers. They're just learning. They'd love to get some wisdom from you. You've done this, and they're just starting. So there's got to be something or some encouragement we can share with them to help them on their journey. What would be helpful for you to hear when you first started writing from an author? What kind of words of wisdom can you share?
Well, I have quite a lot of advice because I've been writing for quite a while. I would say start off, read everything and anything and find out where your interests lie. Fiction, nonfiction, poetry, memoir, biography, whatever. And read focus on those probably. You'll know from the excitement, I think, where you're supposed to be. I did take a couple of notes just in case, so I may just look to them every now and then. And I think the second thing is to watch and to listen. In other words, to spy and to eavesdrop, to put it not very elegantly. I go for a walk every morning and I find myself watching how different people walk, or whether they haul their dog along by the leash or whether they let the dog stop and have a sniff, And eavesdrop, you're on a bus, you're in a cafe, and suddenly this scrap of conversation. And I think this isn't just being intrusive. To me, it's feeding the imagination, getting the cadence of dialogue. There's a lot in that. I don't ever write about real people. Other people can fashion their characters on real people. That's fine. There's no rules. There are no rules. That's something I should say right at the beginning. I don't think there are any rules, except to write as well as you possibly can. And I think listening and watching like this feeds the imagination, so that when you come to your characters start arriving in your head, they'll have some flesh on their bones, they'll have a voice in your ear, and they will become, in some cases, more real than the real world. To me, anyway.
Yeah.
I remember my first medieval novel, set in the 1300s in southern England. And I was walking down by the lake one day. I had a lake right across the road. And this airplane came over quite low. And I looked up and thought, oh, what's that? You know, as though I was Edmund in 1348. I thought perhaps Satan had arrived. Ooh. And another time, I was doing a thesis many, many years ago on the book of Job. And I had 6 months to do it. So I was very involved in this. And I drove in one day to a parking lot in Halifax. And there was a sign in the window. And I looked at this sign and I thought, that's a really weird sign. Job sharing?
Job sharing. Hey.
So I would encourage that kind of strong involvement with your character, whether it's yourself in a memoir or whether it's whatever you're writing about in a poem, or an essay, or whatever. I have never written nonfiction, so I'm not too good to give advice on that. But a novel, most certainly. So that would be the second thing. Oh, yeah. And for me, there always has to be that light bulb moment at some point where something happens inside you and you think, oh, there's a story in there. Because it takes, again, I speak as a novel writer, but I also have a poetry collection published. It takes a lot of energy to take a novel from beginning to end to, you hope, publication. Oh, you get a lot of energy, sustained energy. And for me, the light bulb has to be there in order to sustain that energy. So shall I keep going?
This is great. I'm loving all of this.
Absolutely.
Come on.
Okay. You will probably fairly soon know whether you're what I call an outliner or what they call a pantser. Yes. Now, an outliner will have, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this, all the way to the end. A pantser will start on page 1, not have a clue what's going to happen on page 2, and keep going and discover it as they go. And again, I think each writer has to find his or her own style. No rules, no right, no wrong. I think I hover in the middle.
Okay.
Because when I begin a novel, I have a general idea of the arc of the story, the general idea, but I don't know what's going to happen necessarily on page 2. But I do have a general idea of where I'm going, as opposed to the pantser who... I don't think it knows, and I admire that hugely. I cannot do it. I admire it. Okay. Very good advice. Put your seat in the seat of the chair and keep it there. I think if you take talent and you take inspiration, they're wonderful, but I often think perseverance, persistence is what is going to carry you through, and that's just as true of a poem as it is of a novel, or I'm sure of a memoir or of a biography or whatever. Perseverance, sheer cussedness some days. There'll be days when you sit down and the writing will go well. And there are days when you'll sit down and it will not go well. And there'll be days when the words just tumble out, and my fingers can't keep, or your fingers, I hope, cannot keep track of the keys. And there are days when the words just behave like sulky 3-year-olds and you want to toss the whole thing.
I love how you say that.
But you just have to keep going. You just have to keep going. Yeah. I do believe that most strongly.
That's very visual, Jill. I like the sulky 3-year-old. I think that's... I
had a couple of them.
I can see it in my mind. I like that. You got more. Come on. Let's share some more.
More. Well, okay. When I'm writing, I don't really set a word limit per page. A word limit per day. But I usually work for 4 hours, maybe, pretty steady. I'm a morning person, first thing in the morning. Some people start writing at 9 at night. No rules.
Yeah.
Again, whatever suits you. And people have jobs, they have to go
Right.
to and so on. I'm lucky I'm retired, so I can do it when I want. So I do it first thing in the morning. And the way I start every morning, which may or may not work for you, is to revise what I wrote the day before, read it over, or maybe the 2 or 3 days before, if it's, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages. Read it over, make corrections, and then that gets me back into the story. And usually then it's easier to begin the new day.
Right.
And the other thing I meant to mention was before I start writing, I've always had a kind of brooding phase, where I wander around looking vacant with a notebook in my hand and dashing down little things which I may or may not be able to read. But at some point I'll find I'm vacuuming. And it's when I start vacuuming, I think, okay, Jill, you've got to start writing because it's scary. It's scary. You're facing blank screen after blank screen. Oof. Takes a bit of courage, I think, to write a novel, a biography, a memoir, a poem.
Excellent.
It does. So, and I tend to begin at the beginning and work my way through to the end. And I know writers who'll write a scene in the middle of the book and then go back before it. I couldn't do that, but people do, and it works. No rules.
Okay. That's great, Joe.
Okay. Workshops and a writing group. I think they can be wonderful. I think with each of them, the group needs to have standards that are fairly clearly spelled out. I've been to a few, I've run a few. I think honesty is important, and I think respect is important. You never run anyone down, and there's always something to find that you admire in the writing. And maybe there are weaknesses, but you need in the group to be able to suggest that I find this paragraph doesn't go far enough for me, or I need this character developed more. And try, I think, always to say it in I statements, because that's not saying, oh, you wrote a bad sentence there, Dave. It's saying, this sentence doesn't work for me. May work for everybody else in the workshop, in which case you ignore me.
Yeah. You don't feel attacked then as an author when somebody's reading your work. You don't feel like somebody's picking on you or your work. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And possibly for a beginning writer, it would be very helpful. I think it was for me initially. To have company, on the journey, on this journey, which it is. Yeah. Theme. I never start a book with a message that I'm going to get across to you, by golly. I'm going to hit you on the head with it and you're going to get it. I never do that. Okay. I don't know what the theme of the book is going to be until it's written, for sure. And even then, I sometimes don't. I've written 5 books for young readers, and the third of the middle grade ones, which would be ages 8 to 12, was about a young girl called Sigrid who lived in northern Newfoundland. And after it came out, and I was talking to somebody who had read it, and she said, this book is about loneliness. And I sort of stood and probably my jaw dropped. And I thought, you're right. It's about loneliness. I never knew that, but it was. But I obviously somewhere knew enough that Sigrid came across as lonely, which she was. But I didn't have that as a theme in mind. I think it's better when you're writing, if you can, and when your characters take over, which my hope is that they always will, that they themselves will, or he or she, will bring up the loneliness, bring up the despair, bring up the joy, bring up the love, bring up whatever it is. So it's not you kind of, putting it on.
I like when the world tells you what the book means to them, right? What the story means to them, what the character means to them. I like music, Jill. I've been doing music for a long time, and I've written songs with people. We release the song into the world, It's about something. At the end of the day, we come to our theme of what we're singing about, what we've written about, and what the lyrics are about. Put it out in the world, and then somebody will come to us later and go, I love the song about this. And we look at them like, what song? We have never written a song about that before. They're like, no, this song here, this is what it means to me, and this is what I got out of it. And it's something completely different than we intended. It's not even in our mind when we wrote the song, but to that person, there's something about it that they saw it through their eyes. I like how authors do that then as well. I love that.
Oh, yes. And to me, you see, the reader is him or herself, a creator in his or her own right.
Yeah.
You know, I'll say they bring their whole lives to this book, which they open at a particular moment in their life, in a particular situation in their life. And they then create, in a sense, what's there. I find that fascinating. It's like a synergy, really, I hope.
It's humbling because they're adding themselves to the book, to the story, to the characters. And again, they're seeing it through their filter, like you said, how they are today in this moment. And they might see themselves, a different part of themselves later as they reread the book in the future, because now they're in a different place.
Indeed.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
I love that relationship between authors and readers. I think I'm glad you brought that up.
Me
That's
too.
really good.
And how we need readers. Yes. I mean, all writers need readers. Oh, please, read.
It's great.
I love the books in your background. I think they're some of them.
Those are all from my past guests
Music.
And things, yeah. So, yeah. You must have more. I see you looking to your side, like you have a little notes. Do you have some more for us, Jill? I love what you're doing here, by the way.
Well, okay, point of view. That's always a tricky one. From whose point of view are you going to tell this story? And this, I would assume this works more for novel. Because for memoir and biography, I guess your autobiography, biography, you take the point of view of the person, I suppose. Anyway, from novel, first point of view, I did this, I did that. Second point of view, you did this, you did that. Third point of view, he, she, they, whatever, did. And that's a choice we each have to make. And hopefully the characters themselves will make it for you. First person limits you so that there's nothing that can be seen in the novel that the character is not seeing or witnessing or attending. So that's a limiting factor. You can't suddenly talk about Tom over there in the field and what Tom's thinking, because I, standing on the other end of the field, don't know.
Right.
Yeah. Second point of view, I've never written. I've read, and of course I can't remember the titles, a couple of books like that. I think they're brilliant, but I'm not pulled to write a U book. Mm-hmm. I've written from both the male and the female point of view, possibly tending a little more towards the male, because quite often boys and men are mysteries to me, even though I have a son and a grandson. Yeah. But it is a choice you will need to make. And I know I've started sometimes a book in the first person, and 20 pages in, I've thought no, and gone back and changed it to whatever. And another quick word of advice, the beginning may not be the beginning, but you have to begin. Again, it's that blank screen thing. And before I start writing a novel, I will have the first sentence in mind. It's the only way I can do it, having vacuumed the living room. I have to have that first sentence and then just pray, hope, whatever, that the second and the third and the fourth will somehow follow. And it may be that will not be the ending at all. When I sent Edmund the Arrows of Mercy, my first medieval novel, when I sent that off to the editor in London in the UK, and he wrote back and said, Jill, the book begins first page, chapter 3. And I thought, no, I really love chapters 1 and 2. 1 and 2. You can't do that to me. And then, of course, I went away and I read it and I thought, yeah, he's right. So chapters 1 and 2 finished. I used a little bit of chapter 1 in the second novel, medieval novel, so it wasn't all wasted.
Wow.
It's not wasted, but yeah, I guess this is another piece of advice is editing. If you can, and I know that, for some people this isn't possible, but if you can find an editor with good credentials who's not going to break the bank, somebody who will read it from a distance, who's disinterested, objective, I think that's the best thing you can do for yourself. And if you can't, then hopefully your writing workshop or your writing group, whatever, they will do a lot of that for you if they're operating the way I would like to see those things operate. But to me, I am always intent on sending the novel when I've revised it till I'm sick to death of it. I couldn't see a hole in it if I fell into it. I send it off to this Michael in England, and he sends me back a report, usually in 3 weeks. And there's a lot of stuff in there that I certainly missed. Yeah. And I trust him now, and I almost always put most of his suggestions in. There'll be a few that I'll think, no, I don't think so, Michael. But generally speaking, an outside voice looking at your book is a big favor you can do for yourself if that's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had an author on, they were talking about the editing process, similar to what we're talking about today. And one of the things they said is sometimes the things that I remove from my book, those words weren't really meant for my reader. They were meant for me as the author. Those words are just for me. Right. So I think I'm starting here. But then getting feedback like you had, well, the book starts here instead. You're like, but I love these words. But those words were really never meant for your audience. They were just meant for you.
I know. That's a very acute thing that your interviewee to say, I think. That is true. Sometimes you have to write it down to sort of get to the next place. Right. And afterwards realize, whoops, got to come out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to get on the bus to get to your destination, right? That's the first thing. You got to get on the bus.
Right.
So,
right. Get on the bus and get at it.
I like it.
And there are books about editing, and I'm sure there's stuff online. I have a good book. It's called, I don't know whether you can see that or not. Self-editing for fiction writers.
Good.
And it's do you need me to hold that?
I haven't put that in the notes so people can grab a copy as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
How to edit yourself into print. I mean, don't you love that subtitle?
That's a very good subtitle.
Rennie, Reni, Brown, Browne, and Dave King. It's been around a while, but it's got, revising doesn't change. So, 1993.
Do you recall how you came across that book in particular? It's like right beside you, so I'm sure it's got some meaning for you.
Well, how I came across it originally, you mean? I think I went looking because I think in my early days, I didn't get an outside editor to my detriment. Okay. So I think I relied quite a lot on that.
Yeah, we'll put that in the notes for people listening. They can then go and check it out themselves. That's a great recommendation.
And there's a really good book by Jack Hodgins, Hodgins. You see that? The Passion for Narrative. And he goes through a lot of the things that I hope I've remembered to talk about. Really good sound advice from somebody who's written novels and knows what he's talking about. Yeah.
That's good.
So another good one.
I love that they're right beside you, Jill. That's a sign of a book that you recommend. They're with you and you're thinking of them. That's good.
And one more, then I'll stop. Oops. Where is it? Steering the Craft. This is by the wonderful Ursula Le Guin. What else do I need to say?
There you go.
She's a marvelous writer.
Excellent.
Yeah, and it's about, what does she call the subtitle? A 21st Century Guide to Sailing the Sea of Story.
Wow.
Yeah. So there are books out there too, which can be very helpful.
Great.
I think now I'm sort of, I know. two things, two quotes that I love. Henry James. Okay, I'll have to read this. What is character but the determination of incident? What is incident but the illustration of character? I love that, the interweaving of character and incident. And the only exception I might make to that at times is in a novel that can be historical, sometimes historical events take over your character. The character is not choosing to find himself maybe in a trench in World War I under fire, but how he deals with that or doesn't reveals his character, and what he does, the incidents will happen depending on his character. And then the other one is Samuel Beckett. Try again, fail better.
Oh,
I love.
Can you read that? Read that one more time, Jill. Read that one more time. I like that.
Samuel Beckett. Fail again. Try again. Fail again. Fail better. Last word. That's all we can do.
Great.
Just do the very best we can possibly do.
That's really good. That's really good.
I think I've finished.
I'm like done. That. No, that's great.
Good advice.
Okay. That was. Thank you for being prepared with that as well, Jill. I love that you came with an intention for our authors listening, because they're going to have to rewind that and listen to that all again, Jill. There's so much value there for authors.
Well, I could send you I printed it out in a document. I could email it to you if you want.
I'll put it in the notes for people so they can follow along.
Okay.
That's very kind of you.
All right.
Very kind.
Okay. I'm happy to do that.
Let's talk about your writings and what you're working on. You've wrote a whole series, right, for like young adults. Is that correct? And it's like multiple books. Was it 5 altogether that you wrote?
I wrote 3 from middle grade. It was my grandson.
Oh, yes. Let's talk about this.
Yeah. Quickly, the story about my grandson. I had a poetry collection published when I was out in Winnipeg. And when I came back to Halifax, which is, near where I live, I had a launch at the Writers' Federation of Nova Scotia. And my 8-year-old grandson was there in his white shirt and his khaki pants, And about a month later, he said to me, Nan, I want you to write me a book. It's got to have hockey in it and skidoos. And of course, I adore this kid. So I said immediately, oh, yeah, I'll do that. And then, of course, I went away and thought, what have I done? I made a promise. I can't break this promise to this kid. But so I started writing a book about a young guy. My grandson was born in Newfoundland, and they lived in Newfoundland for 17 years. So I set the book in Newfoundland, in northern Newfoundland, and it was about a young boy, 12 years old, Travis Keating, who moved with his father to northern Newfoundland, didn't want to go there. His mother had died, and he was a great hockey player, but the Zamboni was broken, so he couldn't play hockey, and there was a bully. And eventually his father buys a skidoo, so I got the skidoos in and I got the hockey in. And I did discover that's the blue line, right? Research, it's called. I should have added research, of course, to the advice for the writers. You need to do a certain amount of research. And I remember my son taking me to a very big field in St. Anthony, Newfoundland, up at the northern tip, which is where they were living at the time. Great deal of snow. And very gingerly letting me drive his precious skidoo where there weren't any trees. Anyway, I wrote the book. I called it Making Waves. I thought it was brilliant. I sent it out, and it got 3 rejections in a row. So I gave it to a friend of mine who is an artist and also the person who organized Word on the Street for Halifax initially. And she said, as an artist, okay, your book goes like this.
Point to point to point. Okay.
You make a little difficulty, you fix it. You make a little difficulty, you fix it. On and on. Boring. Your book needs to go.
Wow.
Done. Build to the denouement, whatever it is. Yeah.
Interesting.
What good advice. Okay. So I rewrote the book almost entirely. I went to a workshop at Humber College in Ontario on writing for kids. And the person who was my mentor didn't care for the ending. She felt it ended before it should have. Endings are so, to me, so important. Some people say they're not, but I think they're really important. I, as a reader, want a satisfying ending. It doesn't have to be happy necessarily. It doesn't have to have all the end. In fact, I would prefer it not to have every little knot tied off, but it has to satisfy. So the ending didn't satisfy her, so I rewrote the ending, and she was right. It was, made it a stronger book. And I sent it out again, and Fitzhenry and Whiteside in Toronto published it. So 2 more followed that, told from girls in the same little town, Prinny and Sigrid. And then, of course, my grandson was rapidly getting older. So I wrote 2 young adult. The first one, called Home Truths, it was told from the point of view of a bully. And I did that. He was 14 or 15. I think he was 14 going on 15. Brick McAvoy. He was a bully. And I wanted to know, could he stop bullying if he wanted to? And what made him a bully in the first place? And that book was picked up actually by the Nova Scotia schools because Pink Shirt Day, which is against bullying, originated in Nova Scotia. So that was really good. There's a fair bit of domestic violence in it, and it kind of shocked me, but there it was. So anyway, that was the second one. That was the first YA. And the second YA is called Nix -1. I think it's my favorite of the young readers' books. It's written in free verse. Nix -1. I mean, the title sort of tells you that there's going to be some kind of a loss in this book. And I think I started writing it in prose, and it just wasn't working. He's a very laconic 15-year-old. He's a woodworker. He buries himself in the workshop and makes things. Doesn't get along terribly well at school. And free verse was all that worked. And I sent it out to another Toronto publisher and got the word back, well, change it into short prose sentences and we'll take it. And I couldn't. I mean, I literally could not. And this was a really good publisher, but I couldn't. It wouldn't have been Nix, so I didn't. So, Nix -1, free verse. A really good book for readers, reluctant readers, because it's only got something like 30,000 words in it. Because, of course, there's a lot of blank space on the page. Yeah, I have a soft spot for that book.
I can tell when you're talking. I can tell.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Probably the most autobiographical. I don't know.
Let's jump back to the book about bullying for a second. You mentioned earlier when we were chatting that you don't write to a theme, like at the beginning. Did you kind of write? Was there a theme in there, or when did you discover the theme then for that book?
Well, obviously it was going to be about bullying because I'm writing from the point of view, I hope, from the inside of a young boy, adolescent, who is a bully. But I had real questions that I didn't know the answers. I mean, did he want to stop? Maybe he was perfectly happy, being mean to kids smaller than himself and throwing rocks at dogs, etc. I didn't know. And I didn't know when I started what made him into a bully. And I don't want to give a spoiler, but eventually he discovers that changing isn't as easy as one might think. Changing our behavior, is not an easy thing to do, particularly when you're labeled in a school and in a very small community on the eastern shore of Nova Scotia, as it happened. You're labeled, and to try and get rid of that label isn't easy. Yeah, I think bullying must be a theme of mine because there was a bully in Travis, same one in the second book, kids' book, and then Sigrid was herself a member of a gang of 3 girls, I think, called Shrikes. They were mean, and the cover on the cover has an image of shrikes, which are those birds that they usually kill a bird and then they stick it on a thorn and leave it there until they come to eat it.
Wow.
So these girls were called the Shrikes.
Wow.
So I think bullying is something that obviously bothers me,
Yeah.
and I needed to write about it and see what could be done. I don't know.
The things that come up during vacuuming, right?
Maybe I'm contradicting myself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When you're creating a character that you're curious about, so you're talking about the bully, and you're just curious about why they're a bully, what kind of conversations do you have with your character while you're writing? Do you sit back, put the pen down, stop typing for a second, and do you start talking to your character, like having questions for them to answer? Is that there's like a dialogue happening with you and your character?
I don't know. They talk to me, hopefully. This will happen. I walk a lot because walking keeps the brain moving, I think, keeps the blood going to the brain. And I always carry a notebook, and sometimes a line of dialogue will just, oh, that's what he's going to say next. Oh, I didn't know that. Or at 2 a.m. I'll wake up and a scene will be right there that I was sweating over. I couldn't get it the day before. And there it'll be, and I'll madly write it down. And hopefully in the morning I can read my handwriting. And hopefully it's as brilliant as I thought it was, which it isn't.
Interesting.
I don't know about if I talk to them. I mean, obviously something. What is the imagination? I don't analyze that too much. I never analyze where the light bulb idea comes from, because I'm scared it'll stop.
Oh, I like that. You put it in a box, and now it's in a box, right?
Well, yeah. There's my light bulb. Let's go. But let's not analyze where it came from. Somewhere, if you believe in the unconscious, I don't know. Okay. Or the conscious mind, whatever.
That's an interesting perspective. I like that. There was a result by writing these younger books for a younger audience.
Yes.
Something happened for you as far as like going to schools and things. Is that also part of the story?
Oh yeah. I hadn't been to school for very many years. Believe me, I was petrified the first day, facing a whole room full of grade 4 students. But I had some wonderful times. Wonderful. I had a couple of times, sure, where it didn't go well, but I think I had enough good experiences that I could ride through that. So I went into schools from Vancouver Island to St. John's, Newfoundland, every province except Quebec, because I don't speak French, and gave presentations, workshops, and all 5 books were nominated for the Ontario Library Association's Tree Awards. So I got to go to Harbourfront, for each book, where you stand up, 10 authors lined up, and the kids have all read your book, and they've all voted on it. The kids vote for the one that wins. I love that. I love it. And there's yelling and there's screaming, and and then afterwards you get to sign your book, and you get to talk to kids who've read it. Yeah. Kids who got the book or kids who didn't get the book. And I always remember there was one little boy said to me, I think it was about Travis Keating. He said, well, it was kind of boring at the beginning, but it got better. That was what he felt. And I thought, that's fair. Yeah. So I'm glad he persevered.
And all that at the request of your grandson. Had he not requested that book,
it changed my life.
Right?
It changed my life.
You went all across Canada, everything. Because of...
I would never have written for kids. Wouldn't have occurred to me.
Wow.
So listen to your grandkids. There's another piece of free advice.
Right.
But when at the end of those books, I felt a bit as though I was getting in a literary rut because, bullying was predominant. 4 of them are set in Newfoundland. They're all contemporary. And I sort of thought I'd done whatever it was I needed to do, not knowing quite what that was. So there was a hiatus, which was a bit scary, where I didn't know what I was going to write next. And then somehow out of that, I've had a long time fascination with the medieval period. I'm not quite sure why. There's just something about it that grabs me. And I've been lucky enough to go to Chartres and Notre Dame and Cluny and New York. What is it? The Cloisters, isn't it? New York City. And because I was born in England, I've been in any number of old Saxon or early Norman churches, with the 1.5 foot thick stone walls and the narrow little windows. You can sit and just feel the presence of generations of people
Yeah.
who've come there to worship, to bring their problems, whatever. So I started researching. Are we running out of time?
No,
Are
we're
we
good.
okay?
We're fine.
Okay. I started researching. And another thing I should have said in my advice to the beginning writer, for me, I need to have seen the setting. All these Newfoundland books, I'd been to those, well, the places themselves were imaginary, but I mean, I knew the area really well. And I knew a lot of the people in the area because I met them through my son and daughter-in-law. So this, when I thought of writing a book, a medieval novel set in the 1300s, I needed a setting, and the obvious place, which didn't hit me immediately, but it did eventually, maybe on a walk, was the county where I was born, which is Berkshire, which is west of London. So I said to my son, asked him if he would drive me around the back roads, because I was terrified of driving on the wrong side of the road. I figured it wouldn't be good for the local population at all. And he agreed, a little to my surprise. I hadn't expected that. So we went to London. He's a long-distance bicyclist. And when we got to London, he discovered that the ending of the British equivalent of the Tour de France was going to be right by Westminster Bridge, and he was going to get to see it. Mommy said they'll go past 7 times. And I'm thinking, oh, really? So he did his thing in London. I did mine. Museums and, museums and, British Library. And then we took off and drove the back lanes of Berkshire in the southwest corner. And I found the setting on the Kennet River, which is a real river. And I took myriads of photos. Colin read quite a few books while he was waiting. And that was the setting, and that was the beginning. Then I knew where my character was going to live. And I came home and started reading, and I read for pretty well a year. Dalhousie University has a wonderful medieval collection that I don't think very many people take out, so I was really lucky. And also I have a study full of medieval books. No, I buy books. It's a sickness. And I read, and in a sense, the reading for some sections of the book gave me what I'd call an historical scaffolding, which can be quite useful for a beginning writer or me beginning in this whole new field. Because if he's going to go to a certain campaign in the 100 Years' War, I can read about that campaign and find out where they landed and what they did on the way to Calais and what happened at the siege of Calais. And I've got all that. And then I just have to put Edmund into that situation as a champion archer, which he was. So I had the setting and I had the characters gradually. Names, that's something else I forgot to mention. Should have made more complete notes. The names of the characters to me are hugely important. They have to be right. And if they're not right, I can't write about the person. And again, I don't know where the names come from. Edmund was the name of my protagonist, an archer, a serf. I wrote about serfs, not about aristocrats. They didn't interest me. Living on a small manor in this little corner of Berkshire. And his, well, again, I don't want to do spoilers, but there are some women in his life. His mother, who'd survived the famine of 1315 to 17, which was the worst. I think I've read that it was the worst disaster to hit Europe, Northern and Western Europe, ever. You know, millions of people died. So I had Mem, and I had Edmund, and then there was Agnes, the wise woman. There was Olwyn the Reeve and his daughter Juliana, with whom Edmund was very much in love. And there was Hawise, the servant girl who worked in the alehouse for Edmund's half-brother, Bart. And those names, Hawise, I didn't think to put in how you pronounce it. I spelled it Hawise. To me, it was fairly obvious. People said to me, Hawise? So in the second book, I put a little pronunciation guide. So I wrote the book. I wrote this sprawling mess because I was totally in love with the research. And I figured you'd be in love with the research too. You know, plot galloping all over the page, characters here, there, everywhere. Oh, it was a mess. And eventually I sent it off to Michael in England, and between us, we cut it back to from 153,000 to 113,000 words. That's a lot of words to get rid of. It took a long time. I do not advocate that as a means of writing a novel. So since then, I've written a standalone sequel called The Arrows of Fealty. Fealty being what a serf has to swear. He has to swear an oath of fealty to the lord of the manor. Basically, obedience and, in theory, devotion. Well, that wasn't always particularly strong. Standalone sequel, which is about one of Edmund's sons. So I carry forward some of the same characters, because so many people at the end of the Arrows of Mercy said to me, what happens to Edmund? Does he survive the plague? Because the plague comes to England in 1348. You've got to write another book. So I have. And that will come out on September the 21st.
Wow.
I may write it. You never know.
You said it was a little bit uneasy in that hiatus between writing one to one audience to then writing into a different audience.
Yes.
How long was the hiatus between that? That's a big change. That's a huge change of focus and audience and story.
Yeah, I think it might have been 6 months or more. I don't know. I was probably still busy going to schools for the kids' books, so that probably kept me busy. Yeah. But I knew I had to write I'm a writer. I have to write.
And a whole lot of thoughtful vacuuming in that time frame too, right? Where you're just trying to, exactly. As you mentioned, vacuuming was your thing to kind of unlock, right?
Yeah. It was a little scary. I've read of, the serfs in their fields, they had fields in strips, and they would leave a certain strip fallow every year. And in a way, I suppose I was in a fallow period, but I tend to be a little impatient, and I didn't like being fallow. I think I'd recommend being fallow every now and then to people.
That's a huge lesson, Joe. I like that.
Oh, it is.
It's great visual.
It was a big... Yeah. Huh.
Fallow ground seems like unproductive ground, but it's actually productive, right?
Oh, it is. It's giving the soil a chance to replenish itself. Yeah.
There might be some farming books in your future, Joe. I don't know. There's something there.
These books are quite a lot about farming, because these serfs are farmers. They are farmers. There's no question.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Joe, again, having you on here is great. I think I have learned so much having you on here to talk through this, and there's so much value. I can tell you have a heart for other authors and writers and encouraging people to share their story. And I'm sure there's people in your past that you've looked up to and have inspired you. You have shown us 3 books already. I can tell there's resources. There's a lot of love for the writing community from you as an author. So I'd love to wrap up, Joe, with our conversation today. Let's talk a little bit about your website before we go, because I want people to come and connect with you, and they've heard you today and they're like, oh, I need to talk to Jill and I need to follow her journey and see what's next for Jill. Let's talk a little bit about your website, and we can close off. But thank you so much for doing this. Tell us about your website.
Okay, my website. Let's see. It begins with pictures of the Arrows of Fealty, because I actually have the printed book in my apartment now. Boxes of it. And it tells a little about that and about OC Publishing, which is the hybrid publisher which brought it out for me in a very timely fashion and a very helpful fashion. And it gives some of the advanced reviews, which have been hugely encouraging. And then it talks about the Arrows of Mercy a little bit, its predecessor, and, you know, the award that it was a finalist for and so on. And there's a section about me where you can read more about me. I love to canoe, so there's pictures of my canoe.
Yes.
And there's a section about all my publications, the kids' books, you know, and the awards they won and one thing and another, and reviews of them. What else? And I think there's a page where I think you can contact, you know, you can type in an email and it will come to my email and I can then answer it.
That's good. Yeah. And I see a tab that says book talk on your website.
Oh, yeah, the blog. Yeah. I don't do that anymore, Dave. I did it for quite a while. Maybe that was part of the hiatus. Could be.
There you go.
It was reading other people's books and trying to decide what I felt about them. And that kind of hopefully moved me along.
Yeah. One thing that caught my eye on your website, it's a beautiful website, Joe, but there's the picture of your canoe at the dock. And I want to go to that location. I've been looking at it many, many times. It's just a beautiful picture. It looks like a very serene place. Can you just tell us, where is that spot, Joe?
It's called Milford House. It's in Milford in Nova Scotia, which is about 20 minutes drive north of Kejimkujik Park. So it's in a big area of lakes, and Milford House is actually on a lovely chain of lakes. A lot of granite. You have to watch what you're doing. First scratch I put on that beautiful canoe. Oh. But each cabin, and they are rustic, there's no question, and there's no Wi-Fi, which a lot of people wouldn't care for, but I love having a week with no emails. Yeah. Each cabin has a dock and right on the lake, and you can moor your canoe there. So you can get up at 6:30 in the morning, and I've canoed into the sunrise through the mist on the lake, and occasionally lucky enough to hear a loon or a beaver, you know, slap his tail. Very Canadian. Yeah. And then you can canoe to breakfast. I mean, what could be better than that? Milford House. There you go. I recommend.
Beautiful. Well,
I think you should come.
I think I should. Again, I'm just staring at the picture right now. It's gorgeous. I can feel the photo. That's great. And what I love about what you do, Jill, I can feel the words, right? As we talk through all this, the passion is there. Just as that picture represents a beautiful scenery and a beautiful spot and a lot of memories for you as well, your writings are that for us as readers. It brings us in as a story, and we feel like we can step onto the dock and jump into a canoe with you and sail around, which is great. I really appreciate you being on the show, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dave. I've very much enjoyed myself.
It's a great conversation.
And I hope some of these words have been helpful to some of you out there.
And as you listen to this podcast, and these words have resonated with you, I know Jill would love to hear from you. So either reaching out through her website, when you buy her books, there's many to choose from. You've had a great overview. There's people you know that are listening as you listen that would love these books. So there's a lot to choose from. Please leave a great review for Jill. I know she'd love to hear your thoughts about why this book resonates with you, what your lesson was, what your big aha moment was reading this book. It's inspiring for our authors to hear back from our readers. So I encourage everyone,
it is.
Not if, but when you buy Jill's books, you leave that great review.
Thank you for the plug.
Jill, thank you so much for doing this. Keep us in mind. I'd love to have you come back in the future.
Thank you, Dave. You're really welcome. I really enjoyed myself.
Excellent. Everyone, all the information as always for Jill in the show notes. The list of the books that we talked about as well through her website. And again, go out and buy many books from Jill. I know you're going to love them. Jill, thank you so much.
All right.
Excellent. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thank you so much again for pressing play. As you've heard, great guests on the show. And one thing you didn't hear in this conversation is what? What did you not hear? Think about it for a second. That's right. Not a single solitary commercial for a mattress or a supplement or a whatever you call it. No. Why? Because we don't want to break up the conversation with commercials. So the fact that you're still here means that you are a fan of the show, I'm assuming. So if you want to help to keep the podcast going and to make me feel really happy, all I really care about is coffee, okay? I just got to be honest. I love coffee. I'm drinking one right now. It's starting to get cold. I need to warm it up. helping us with our Buy Me a Coffee link over at livingthenextchapter.com, and also in the show notes helps kind of keep the lights on around here. Remember, I'm doing this for free. I'm paying for everything. So I would love to have a little coffee donation, even $5 kind of fills up my cup. And I would love to enjoy a coffee from you. So if you're interested, again, thank you for listening. But you can use our Buy Me a Coffee link and fill up the cup. Thanks for being here.